the next question is from Velo Kraken, who asks, what has been the most difficult thing to narrate when someone in a visual novel is screaming like, please somebody help, something like that? I can't scream that in my house. I just have this fear or paranoia or something that someone's going to hear that and think I'm in trouble, or something is going to be off, or something's going to go wrong or whatever. And so I generally, even if I've been narrating the shit out of a scene going up and until that point, if that line comes up, I just say it normally and then give the explanation that I can't scream that. I don't feel comfortable yelling that. I can hear any time any one of my 4 neighbors plays their radio. Like, if I start screaming, someone please help, there is a very real possibility someone could fucking hear that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to think if I heard someone screaming, someone please help, that I would think, oh God, someone might be in danger and want to try to help.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you want to know your neighbors well enough to be like, hey, I voice act if I am screaming. Most of the time I wouldn't need help. It's
but
so
then you get
weird.
a boy who cries
like,
wolf situation. Like,
yeah, exactly.
What if I'm
That's
actually in help?
say.
Like,
I feel like
it
I
should
feel
be
like
in
you
your
could
own
almost
voice.
I feel like you could almost add that to it's like the fire thing. I've never seen a situation in a visual novel, but now I'm like, now I'm thinking like, if you have like a visual novel where it's like they're like, like, help, there's a fire. Like, you can't.
Yeah, I don't have a soundproof booth that I'm narrating this shit in. The second thing that's difficult for me to narrate, just comes from my own kind of just self-conscious in nature, is I've been trained by YouTube to be wary of sex scenes. Yeah, going into it, I didn't think anything of it. Like, in my original attitude towards these games, I mean, fuck, the first one I played was amorous. I did not give a shit. I was like, oh, okay, fine, and then I would just read it. But I was ready. I was willing to put up with a lot playing that game. But I was able to read it just fine. But now whenever it comes up, I'm just like, oh God, my whole life is gonna die. And so now I'm fucking skittish.
Yeah, it's like they crack down on that side. It's like it also, kind of is site by site, but yeah, it's like any streaming service in general feels like that. Like in the earlier days, it felt like, obviously it's like before things really, really cracked down. But yeah, it's like nobody was really getting on people for that. So it was just like, I'm just doing it, I guess. And then, as things just got more strict, it really does make you self-conscious. Because like, I think I saw some of your older videos and I was like, she's reading them, so I guess I could try to do it. And then eventually I saw you becoming a little more careful about that. Eventually YouTube a couple of times was like, hey, we gotta like restrict this or whatever, blah blah blah, and that helped me to be like, I gotta be careful. So,
I had to
it's partly trial and error, but also partly just the scene in general.
Yeah, I mean, I had to re-edit some of my videos just to take out the sex scene sometimes, and there was such a big batch one time of videos that got flagged all at once that when I went through and re-edited them, I literally, and it was petty and it was dumb and I shouldn't have done this, but I edited the whole scene out, just put in like my face being mad, and then changed the title to YouTube is run by Puritans, and that's the title of the video. And I'm like, oh, so edgy, right? Like, who gives a shit? Just do the video, you fucking petty bastard. Like, but it's whatever. Like, if that's the rule, like, whatever. But that's just the subconscious effect it's had on me. Okay, the last one is that doing this, I've realized that my accent work is weak. And so especially if my partner is home, I get very self-conscious because I just feel like they're in real time judging me, and that reminds me of the not in real time judgment that will happen once the video's out. It gets difficult when someone is like, "Oh, this person is explicitly Australian," or "This person's explicitly, whatever," and I'm just like, "No, they're not. Not for this reading. No, they're not."
Yeah, that actually kind of segues me into. I said segues like as if like how it's spelled, but like it's segues. Oh, my brain. Jeez. Sometimes you just see a word and you're like, what? Like you see a word and you just don't understand. But yeah, sorry. The transition I was gonna make was with accents or anything that's like kind of on your outer edge of your range or something further from your range. It's my hardest thing for me is trying to do a very either emotional scene. Yeah, I guess emotional, either like very happy, very sad, very mad, etc. Like anything that's very emotional that you really have to like push the character for. It's really hard because like you're in your normal voice, you can be angry, be happy, be sad, whatever it is, and that's just natural to you. But when you're doing a different voice, a different impression, you have to learn how to portray that in that different voice. Like you can try at first, and then it's like you end up reverting maybe back to like a normal voice, a slightly different voice, etc. It's like you have to fine tune it. That's like one of the trickiest things for me, because then it's like I have to be a lot more conscious about how would this voice sound sad? How would this voice get really angry? Like I have to like think about like what I'm pushing in my body, what I'm moving around, adjusting, whatever it is that produces that while being angry. It's not like when you just get angry normally, you don't think about it.
Yeah. Marshmallow Bear.
I think you guys touched on both of mine. Sex scenes and just really, really emotional scenes, especially if you've given the character like more of a silly voice. Like I have a hard time doing like emotional, like crying scenes to begin with, just because I can't cry in command. But if I found I've given the character a more, off the wall, silly voice, I'm like, uh-oh. This character isn't meant to be. This voice isn't meant to be crying. Uh-oh. Oops. But then with like sex scenes, it's not just because of the TOS thing for me. It very much is the TOS thing for me. Because I like my channel and I don't want it gone. But it's also me being more of like Ace. It just makes reading that stuff kind of uncomfortable. It's just like, oh, okay, they're really going at it. Okay. Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like I don't. When is this going to be over? Can I be done? I'm just going to skip through this.
Fair enough.
But yeah, those are my two things that I could think of. I'm sure there's more. Like, I guess another really hard thing for me is just, which we've talked about before, is coming up with female voices, just because it's out of my range,
Mm-hmm.
And it's something I really need to work on.
That was something that Blaidd had mentioned. And speaking of Blaidd.
Oh, yes. I still remember trying to play Night in the Woods and having May screaming at something. Completely impossible for me. But like a couple of you already mentioned, the accents are my particular thing as well. I've got a little more comfortable with some things as I've gone along, but the first time I came across it was actually back when I started playing Echo. Of course, a few episodes were fine. Then we meet Kudzu. And I know from what the character's owner said on the Discord, he's canonically Chinese. There's no way I'm going to get anywhere near that. And certainly if I try, I'll be so offensive. It'd be embarrassing for me and let alone anyone else. So I just made him come from somewhere in the valleys, like up Treorbit, like, so he has more of this kind of accent, which does not fit him at all. But it was literally the only way I could work around that. And yet anyone says, oh, he has this really strong accent. Oh, no.
My God.
How can I do this?
I gave him a New York accent. I didn't even fucking think.
I just happen to know that aside from the end. So yeah, that worked if you don't know it.
Fuck.
Like listening to Dirk's version of the Smoke Room. That voice he gives Sam is so good. I think it really fits him. Of course, I can't go anywhere near that, so I'm kind of uncomfortable doing that. Oh yeah, no, there's much better voices and much better accents. So the accents are the worst things. And again, like mostly the TOS and the sex scenes, yes, that is a bit of a problem. But also, one time I was actually talking to a VN dev and saying about, sex scenes are so awkward to write sometimes. And, this is really bad writing. I write much better than this. And I get to this, oh no. So I think it's on both ends sometimes of the VN spectrum, from writing it to recording these scenes. It's a little hard to do.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the two I mainly have problems with. Sometimes if something is quite grim, I can think of a few ones I've done recently. They are a little hard to get through. You need to do something else afterwards just to get yourself out of that mindset of how dark something has got. But I can generally get through them. I just know how to handle things afterwards and get myself back to it.
I was going to say on accents, because I just remembered on my thing on accents, I remember I was reading Dawn Tide, and it's all set in Britain. None of those characters are British.
Oh. I feel like I deal it with I feel like I deal it with Blaidd. I was like I don't want to do British accents. He's around, and I just forget. I gave like a character a British accent. I'm like, oh, this is so bad, and I'm like, I'm offended him so much.
Oh. There's another one I was playing recently. I don't remember what it was, but they were like all based in somewhere where I was like, if I did all of them with an accent, it would be so annoying after so a while for everyone watching. I'm like, I'm just gonna spare you of that.
you know what visual novel? There's one visual novel I remember, and the voice made me laugh, and it's not your fault. I know you're trying, but I don't know why it made me laugh. This is a long time ago. You did an Australian accent for a certain kangaroo character. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh God!
You know what I'm talking about, don't you? And I remember watching
Wolfstar Sins in Paradise, right?
I remember watching. I remember watching the live stream, and I just hear that voice, and I just started.
I can't do an Australian.
I know
accent.
it's okay, and it's not your fault. I can't either. But it's just,
but why does that? Why is that keep popping up so many times?
Does it? I did because it was the only accent I can remember like vividly. I'm like, oh my gosh,
an Australian accent that's in Wolfstar. There's also isn't there an Australian character in Santa Lucia? Right?
I haven't watched your Santa Lucia.
And I think there's one in there. And then isn't Ralph in the Smoke Room? Isn't he Australian?
Oh,
maybe.
I don't know. I put on a more proper voice for him all the time.
I'd love to hear that he's not, because I've been having to do one for him this entire time, and I thought he was.
Whoa.
Because if he's not, then I can stop doing that, and I would
immediately
love to.
Recasted.
Yeah, immediately. I'm just gonna make him. I'm gonna give him the Darius voice, and it's done.
Does anyone? Because we've done this before on our readings. Does anyone give accents to characters that definitely do not have accents? Because my favorite one is Flynn's roommate. I forgot his name, but I love him.
Daxton?
Daxton. Yeah. He's Australian in every single fucking reading that we do. For no reason. He's just, there is a reason. I had an Australian friend that played him once. And then after they couldn't make it, we were just like, he's Australian now. Daxton is Australian.
I love this canon.
I feel like for like it was either Dasher and Terry. I feel like I gave a character a Cockney accent, and I don't know why. I think it was a Dasher, and I can't remember. It was like a minor character, and it's like I don't know why. And I think I gave him like a Cockney accent, and I was like, why am I giving this character?
I do have an unfortunate history of slipping in New York accents where ought not to be in a New York accent, like the aforementioned kudzu. I just couldn't think of one. I didn't know that there was supposed to be, like you said, a Chinese accent. I didn't know, and so I was just like, I just started doing a New York accent, and then someone commented like, "What the fuck happened with the accent?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll rein this back a bit."
I can't do a New York accent to save my life. Like, I always feels like it cuts off for me. Like, I tried giving one to like Thanatos from Password, but it just keeps coming up too sassy. I don't know.
Try. You can always try a Brooklyn accent. That's always like a fun one to do. A very, very annoying.
No offense to the Brooklyn audience.
No, I'm just saying the accent when you're trying to do it because it's like you're very loud and boisterous usually. It's like, hey, forget about it. You know.
Oh, fucking forget about it.
Fucking forget about it.
All right. Before we get too far away from it, Fallenwolf, what's been the most difficult thing for you to narrate?
So I think we mentioned it. So sex scenes are rough usually just because for me, like I really I love voice acting, so I really want to get into these roles. So that means when I do, these sex scenes, I'm really trying to get into it, and it's like in my head, I'm like, oh, this is so. I can't believe I'm doing these. I can't believe I'm really trying. I'll be like, try.
Oh yeah.
Like trying to get the right sounds. So you guys pretty much answered that. And then a hard thing for me is if there's a character that I completely not necessarily completely, but no, yeah, we'll go with that. If there's a character that I completely disagree with, like I don't like them, I think they have terrible motivations, I just think they're a scumbag, and I have to voice them, and especially if I'm voicing them doing like a heinous thing, it's very hard for me to want to voice the character because it's like, I hate this character. I don't want to read these lines. They're saying these horrible things, and I just but not like just because I hate the character. I mean, like if it's like a character that's doing a really horrible, heinous action,
yeah,
and having to try to stay in the character. Like an example that mixes both of those together, and I'm not going to describe the scene because we don't need to describe the scene. Neko, this was back before when I was posting everything, just blurring certain things. There was a certain scene where I was playing a certain characters for Neko Jishi. There's a certain scene that most of you guys probably know what I'm talking about. That was not fun to do.
Yeah.
Another one, yeah.
Yeah, I remember voicing. I was like, I don't want to voice this. I freaking hate this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So like basically stuff like that. Basically, a mix of doing sex scenes and doing characters that do like really heinous things. Like when I'm doing a character and I have to try to stay in character, it'll be a womp scream, and I'm like, screw this guy, stop it, don't let him do this. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why is he doing this?
It does get hard to hold back the incredulity of it all. That's what makes it hard when I've been told that I'm not proud of the fact that people have said that they enjoy my Brian voice. Brian from Echo and Arches. Because Brian is... I literally avoided using Brian in any thumbnail from Echo. But now that Brian is so unavoidable in Arches and he's in the CGs, he's had to be in thumbnails. So all that work in Echo was just for naught. But I enjoy that voice. I do not enjoy Brian. I hate Brian. I
don't think you're supposed to enjoy him.
No, you're not supposed to enjoy Brian. I'm thoroughly disgusted by Brian and everything to do with Brian. But the fact that, like, think about it, like, to be told that, like, Dirk, your Sam is the canon Sam, or Blaidd, your Amicus is the canon Amicus. Those are noble characters with flaws, sure, but those are also very good voices and very, like, whatever. To be told that you're the canon Brian,
That'll be bad. Yeah.
That's
Well,
not
sweet.
It's not something to
Hey,
hang your hat on,
villain.
brother.
You gotta be the
I mean,
villain.
I feel this.
Everyone
I
loves
feel
a
this-
villain, right?
Not that one.
Oh, I know some people that do.
Not people
I
in the
mean-
right mind.
I feel a similar way when I'm doing Vendrake for where the demon lurks. I'm like, I get so into the performance, but like internally, I'm just like, screw this. I hate what you're doing so much. Stop. But it is quite a hammy character to ham up, whoever the phrase is.
You know what other character that we already brought this up, so we're not going to go into a whole debate. Another character I was really back when I played Lagoon Lounge, having to do the main character's voice. That was, oh my gosh, especially because in the beginning, obviously my view was different. I was like, oh, this character can't be that bad. They must improve, and by the end, I'm like, I won't want to read these lines. I hate. I'm like, stop doing these things, Koi.
That's the worst thing too, because my default voice for the main characters is just my voice, because that's what I also do for the narrations. And so when the main characters of these novels turn out to be assholes or idiots, I'm just like, thanks for making me sound like a dumbass.